everybody. I have Dean Rappleye with me this afternoon, and he's going to be he's going to be telling this story. And so I welcome you all to the show. I'm Joy LaJoie. Hope you enjoy our show today, and let me know in the comment section. So I would like to give a shout out to my sponsor, Luscious Moss Studio, owned and operated by Chad Christ in Edgewood, Washington. He has a very collaborative, creative environment set up in his studio. I was just there a couple times last week finishing up a recording. And he does do that, although he primarily caters to guitarists and drummers. But he has it open for anybody. So you can contact him at Facebook. Just look up Luscious Moss or Chad Chris Studio, Luscious Moss, and you'll find him. All right, with that, we're ready to get started. And Dean, I'd like to know how you got started in music. When did you start?
Well, I guess if you really go way back, it was
Yes.
my parents. They had me take piano lessons. I was probably like 8 at the time, and as I look back, I sort of wish I had stayed with that. But, they had me playing classical music, and that just didn't seem very cool to me. So after about 3 years, I was progressing okay, but the teacher got them aside and said, well, he could do it, but he just doesn't want to. So they let me off the hook. And what at that age, what I really wanted to be was a drummer, because I thought that looked really cool.
Yeah.
So my parents, they didn't want that because it's kind of noisy and stuff. So they pretty much threw every other instrument we had at me, including I played a year of flute, and that that's not a very manly instrument.
I did that too. Yeah.
I did that, and then they finally relented and let me start playing the drums. I was in the 7th grade, so I was in school band. I had to buy my own snare drum and that sort of thing. And then there's kind of a side story there about when I started playing guitar. And I remember that was in the 6th grade. And my sister had this crappy old guitar that, as it turns out, was originally purchased. You remember S&H green stamps?
Yes.
Grocery store. Yeah, this thing was, my dad actually traded an old broken lawnmower for it, but I found it in the S&H green stamp catalog, and it was about that quality. The action was way high. But what had happened is we lived in a house that had been added onto, so it was kind of L-shaped. And my sister, I'm of a family of 5 children. I'm the baby of the family. My sister, that was 3rd in line, had the back bedroom. So my parents would send me back there to do my homework, so I wouldn't be distracted by TV and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'd go back there, and there I was with my books, and then there was this guitar, and then there was my books, and there was this guitar, and I got really curious about the guitar and less curious about doing my homework. So that's kind of how I picked it up.
Yeah.
But anyway, to finish the story about being a drummer, I was drummer, still am, since about the 7th grade. I got my first gig when I was probably 16 years old. My dad was a barber in the town I grew up with, Twin Falls, Idaho. Not a huge place, 25,000 people at the time. Yeah. And my dad had the barber shop in the middle block of the main street, so everybody knew him. And one of his customers came in off the street one day and had his friend with him and said, hey, do you know any drummers? And my dad says, well, my kid is a drummer. And they asked if he would ask me if I would play. And, I didn't think that music was all that cool, but the money at the time was $15 for a 4-hour gig, which doesn't seem
that
like
time it was probably good
dollars, but that kept gas in the car and a few fun things. So I agreed to do that and played with those guys for a couple of years. We played Odd Fellows dances, which is kind of a singles group, and also some church dances and things like that. And I didn't much care. I just liked getting the money. But one thing as I look back is I gained an appreciation for Western swing, because that was the style that they played. I thought it was, I thought it was pretty square at the time, but as I've gotten older and
Yeah.
hopefully more mature, I really had developed some fondness. At that time, I was more into rock and roll.
Yeah.
I didn't think the Western swing was that much fun, but it worked out pretty well. And all this time, I continued to play guitar, but it wasn't my principal instrument. And then fast forward, I moved away to college to Pocatello, Idaho, to go to Idaho State, and I found myself with a group that played country rock, and it was
Oh,
about
cool. I
it
love
was
country rock.
about, it was about the time when disco was getting real popular, and sort of I had to make a choice, and I knew I didn't like disco, so I figured country rock got to be it for me. So I played with a group called the Mescalito Brothers for about 3 years while I was going to school, and it was for the time it was very lucrative. We were playing 5 nights a week a lot of times. Played
And
some
this is
outdoor.
in Idaho? In
Yeah,
Idaho?
in eastern southeastern Idaho. So that was a lot of fun. Uh, so that's really how I got started. And as I said, I still play drums when I get an opportunity, but guitar is my principal instrument.
Okay.
That thing, I enjoy it more. As I tell friends, drums are great, but they're not much fun playing around the campfire.
Yeah, exactly. Unless unless you're a native to the country, and then
Yeah, and yeah, I have all kinds of respect for people who like to play in drum circle, but I
right.
like I like something a little bit more melodic.
Yes. I gotcha. We have somebody who made a comment here. It's Casey Freedom. He said, "Hi, Dino." Casey
Hi,
here.
Kate. Good to hear
Hi,
from you, man.
Casey. Yeah. I don't know if he's still on or not, but that's he left his message for us here. So
Yeah, Casey
what?
is a very talented musician that's
Yes,
really come into his own the last few
yes.
years. I'm really happy to know Casey.
I interviewed him not too long ago, and he is now recording with what London Studios. I can't remember what it's called. London something studio. It's a big one where all the rock and roll artists went to.
Uh-huh.
Jonathan Plum, I believe, is the owner of it now, and yeah, he's just come such a long way. It's amazing from when we first started listening to his music compared to where he is today. Yeah, I think the whole thing about all of this is growth. Isn't it amazing how where we start to where we are now is just one big long journey of learning and growing and changing for the
And
better, I hope.
the more you do it, the better you get. So, and the more
Exactly.
comfortable you become too. And I think that's super important.
All right. Yes, I think that the music sounds better when you're relaxed. I learned
Yeah.
that lesson. Still learning. So, who is your biggest? I mean, I know that you were moving towards swing, but do you have any people that stand out that you wanted to pattern yourself after a little, like your style, for instance? Like, who is who is your go-to person? Who did you listen to? Who did you?
Well, I was kind of an omnivore when I was younger. I have all kinds of different influences. The Beatles obviously
Yeah.
were very big, and I have everything that they ever recorded. I love those guys, and even today I do about an hour's worth of Beatles material, or can do. I have that much in my repertoire. Some of them are some of the ones that you would readily recognize, and others are ones that are a little bit on the B side, but I enjoy them all. I liked like rock groups like Zeppelin and Chicago and
Mhm.
Light Orchestra, the Moody Blues. I went through a Frank Zappa period, but I can tell you as an acoustic guitarist, I think maybe James Taylor was one of the bigger influences that I've had. And I probably have everything he's recorded as well. Just saw him on a late night interview, and he's 75, I think now, and he's just still plugging along. He lost most of his hair, but that didn't affect his
No,
ability to play
it
and
doesn't
sing.
affect
So
his playing, right?
Yeah. So, and then there's also somebody I should mention. I became aware of Willis Allen Ramsey in college. I had a neighbor across the street that was from Kamei, Idaho, and he brought this CD over, and he says, "Oh, you got to hear this."
Mhm.
And I heard it, and I just fell in love with it. So I cover a few of Willis Allen's tunes. And for those who aren't familiar with who he is, and
I'm not
it's
familiar.
probably the vast majority of everybody. But what he's maybe known for, maybe his most famous work is Muskrat Love, which I
Whoa,
believe is,
I love that song.
but
Yeah,
I believe it's like the least of his work. There's
you like that the least? I like it the most.
yeah, and maybe it's how it was treated. There was kind of those electronic bird calls in there that didn't do
Yeah.
much.
Oh, it's so sweet.
But he never really made it as a performer, but he writes some terrific stuff. And here's another obscure one for you. Larry Hosford was a
Never heard
guy.
him.
Yeah, and again, it's very obscure. But Larry Hosford is out of Santa Cruz, California, and he writes and sings, or wrote. He died a couple of years ago, but he wrote and sang these really clever country western tunes. His lyric just hilarious. Just a quick short story about how I got introduced to Larry Hosford. I was going to school in Pocatello at Idaho State, and I used to go to this record store. Remember when we went and got records?
Yeah,
You know,
I do.
that was a big deal when you bought a record because it was $5, and that was a pretty good chunk of change back then. And I developed a friendship with the guy who was the manager of the store, and he started coming and seeing our gigs at the Mescalito Brothers. And I came into his store one day, and he says, "You gotta listen to this." He ushers me over to the cutout bin. Do you remember the cutouts?
Yeah.
The ones with the corners clipped off that were on sale for maybe $2 or whatever.
Uh,
Said, "You got to listen to this," and it was an album called Larry Hosford, aka Lorenzo. And I listened to it and just fell in love. He just has such clever songs. Like one that I do is called "Women's Got Me Swimming."
oh, are you going to do that today for us?
Well, I don't know if I
You
get
haven't
I
done
get
that for a while.
yeah. And he was one of those guys that remember when the Beatles started Apple Records and they were trying to encourage other artists to kind of have their chance and that sort of
Right.
thing. I think he was part of that discovery process. George Harrison actually worked with him and played some on that original album. And Larry has had probably 8 or 9 albums since then. But that first album and the one after it, Crosswords, both really good albums, a lot of fun to listen to. My roommate and I would just put those guys on and we would sing along. It was great fun. Plus, great musicians. He had a great steel guitar player, a great lead guitar player, some female backup singers. It's a shame that he didn't get any more notoriety than he did, but he had me as a fan. And just a quick story about that, since we have some time. My sister-in-law, probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, wanted to buy me a Christmas gift, maybe one of the later. No, I remember what it was. She wanted to get me the CDs of AKA Lorenzo and Crosswords. So she researched online and figured out how to get in touch with Larry Hosford himself. And he wasn't real big time, so he was just doing it all out of his house. And she ordered these 2 albums, and they didn't arrive in time for Christmas. And time went on, and time went on, and she thought, well, maybe he just completely blew me off or took my money. About February, I received a package in the mail. I opened it up, and it smelled like a bar room. It smelled like smoke. And he had enclosed a note, and he said, "Please excuse my tardiness. I've thrown in a few other CDs. It'll help you feel okay about it, or if you'll forgive me." So I have all of those CDs and his handwritten note.
Cool. Wow. That sounds like that's a good story. I like that. Is that,
Yeah,
and I, I don't know what it is about this whole thing, and I'm glad it's changed, but there's a lot of great artists out there that people don't know they maybe only had one hit and disappeared, and so many of them did not make it, and yet they were, people that some of us would love to have heard and more of. That
Yeah,
was business.
and I
Now,
think it's probably worse today, don't you? With all the
no,
streaming
I
stuff.
don't. I think with all these services that we have, I don't know who the user is. That's a very cool. Please identify. This thing doesn't let us know. Uh, yeah. Where was I? Forgot. It was so. Anyway, with streaming, um, you can go into foreign countries. When you go through some place like CD Baby or Reverb Nation or whatever, and they put it on the internet to all these different radio stations and streaming systems. And you don't, the big studios aren't coming after pinpointing people as much anymore and offering them record deals or whatever, because there's a lot of independent artists out there who are taking advantage of it that would never have been heard. They would never have been selected. And
Well,
that's where I see it.
I agree with you from the perspective that it gives them access that they may not
Yes.
have had before.
Yes.
The thing that troubles me is there's just so much out there just because of that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
how do
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
How do you become familiar? Right? I get on the internet quite a bit, probably more than I should. But how do I? I mean, do you just listen to everything? That'd take all day and then some, wouldn't it? So
Well,
yeah, so where I get some of my new music from, my new artists that I become to appreciate is maybe on late night talk shows they're featured or something like that. And I just miss those days that the radio station would introduce you to someone new.
yeah. Yeah, those days are gone, I think. But yeah,
Yeah.
one of the ways people can get heard, there's two ways. There's a young man that I've had, or a man I've had on my station, who's a radio broadcaster for landscaping and all of that kind of stuff that I have known nothing about. His name is Russell Owens, and he has a radio program, and he often puts new people on. In fact, next week I have a man coming on. His first name is Doug, Dug, and he's getting his music up there. One of the things I noticed is he contacts all the different radio stations and asks what he needs to do to get his music out there. No, I'm not talking about big stations. I'm talking about local stations, etc.
Sure. Yeah.
And I try to get this here on this program. I've been running for almost 2 years now. And, it gives people a chance to see the new singer-songwriters and people that would normally, you wouldn't know anything about them. You wouldn't know who they were, what their music was like, etc. So hopefully this will catch on and there'll be more opportunities for people to be heard and seen and introduced to the world of listeners. So with that being said, do you play any? So you learned on the piano, you went to the drums, and then picked up the guitar. When did you actually start playing guitar?
Well, as I said, I got my first experience when I was in the sixth grade, and I kept doing it, but I think my growth came when I was playing drums in college because I played with a couple of guys that were pretty decent guitarists, and a lot of times, if either after a gig we'd go to someone's house because after you've had a gig, you're not ready to go to bed, so we go to
No.
someone's house and maybe have a little whiskey and play a little guitar. So I'd bring my guitar because you don't want to bring your full kit into someone's living room 1 a.m. And play music. So I just bring my guitar along and just try to play along with them the best I could. And I learned some licks from them and probably a style of playing that is the most of what I do today. So that's where it kind of really took off. But then I went to work and had a 32-year career in the insurance business and really didn't have a whole lot of time to work on playing guitar. I tried to play maybe a half an hour a week because
Yeah.
I had to commute, and there was, PTA and, things like that, cooking dinners and having family outings and that sort of thing. So music kind of takes a back seat. So fast forward, I finally retired. I started to go out to open mics, and I'd never really played as a solo musician before. I
Ah,
thought, so
mhm.
I have time now, and I can go to these open mics as kind of a safe place to try to learn how to be a soloist.
Right.
So that's kind of where I refined my style, and honestly got the courage and the comfort in playing in front of people. I was in marketing, so being in front of people
Yeah.
wasn't a big deal. But playing music in front of people was
Right.
was a little bit of a scary experience at
Yeah,
first.
I hear you. Absolutely. I still struggle with that. I think my guitar skills were never fully developed, and when they started, it's later in life, and I'm still working on it. But yeah, I wish I was totally independent and able to go out there and just do it by myself. But I just don't have enough knowledge of all the lead licks and stuff that goes into playing the guitar. I'm pretty basic. I'm used to being with band, so I do still try, but I do go
Yeah,
places.
I've seen you play. You do a pretty decent job.
Oh, thank you, but I've made so many mistakes. So when I seen you at Snowtown back in the day, I was really struggling, but things have gotten better. The more practice and the more exposure you get, the better you get. So that brings us up to the section of what happened when when the COVID hit and we were all locked down, and where were you at? Where was your mindset at the time?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I think it was probably true of most musicians. You just you just didn't feel comfortable
Yeah.
letting your skills languish and your ability to play languish and letting your voice get weak and that sort of thing. So I actually did a couple of things. I was thinking to myself, well, we don't get a chance to get together at open mics. So I started a page on Facebook.
Oh,
You
cool.
know, it didn't quite take off the way I had intended because I wanted it to be a place where people could record a video and then
Mm.
post it to that page as if we were having an open mic. And a
Oh,
few people did that, but it really didn't catch on. But
I never
it,
found you. Darn.
what it did do is it gave me a place to, and a purpose actually. I would get together or get in my studio once or twice a week and record a video. And, it's amazing how hard it is when you play this, you're getting ready to play this song you played 100 times, then you push that record button and you
And
suddenly forget
yeah,
how to play a stupid
yeah,
song. So a song that you could probably play in front of people just one take without a problem,
right.
it would take 9 or 10 takes to get one that I felt good about. So
Oh gosh, I know this.
I posted a bunch of my recordings and videos on this page that I put together. It's called Deano's Open Face Mic Book. It's
Oh,
like it's Facebook and open mic only scrambled up. So I put a
yeah.
whole bunch
Can you do
of
me a
that.
favor? With that, can you do me a favor and put that on Matured Musicians?
Sure,
You
sure.
know how to do that? Put the how we can find that, and you have a website too, right?
Yeah, well, I use the Deano's Motel as well. I don't have a website, but I have a Facebook
Yep.
page for Deano's
Okay, I
Motel,
put that on
and
there.
I
Okay.
and I'll put that on there, and also that's where I promote my solo gigs as
Okay.
well. So
Great.
I can give you links to both of those
Yeah,
quite easily.
let's do that. Yeah,
No,
sometimes I have to go back and
and,
scroll and try to figure out some of this stuff
yeah,
to try to
and then
listen
to
to it.
kind of finish the answer to your question,
Yes.
you know about the Thumbnail Theater up in Snohomish, right?
No, I've
They
heard about it. I somebody told me about it. Oh gosh, I can't think his name, but he used to come out to Snowtown all the time and goes to the Oxford. Yeah, and his name just Casey, I thought it was, but maybe I'm wrong. Not Casey Freedom, but another one.
yeah. Anyway,
And you
the
mentioned that
Thumbnail
place.
Theater
I never
had
find it.
an open mic, and they still do. Every Friday night they have an open mic. They are on Avenue D, and I don't know how far up Avenue D it is, but it's like an old church that's been
Yeah,
converted
I
to
know this.
a music and performance video or venue for people like me, and maybe some local bands, things like that.
Right.
Sometimes they'll get more widely known names, that sort of thing, but it's a really cool place.
Yeah.
And they, obviously when COVID hit, they couldn't have an open mic. Nobody could. So they started doing this thing that was a virtual open mic. And,
Yeah.
the technology doesn't allow us to jam online because there's
Right.
still
You got
some late.
delay. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's really come up with a good solution for that. So what they did is they reached out to people like me and just said, send us a video once a week, and then we'll have
Oh,
this open mic
how
on Friday,
wonderful.
and you can watch it on your computer and hear people play. So I participated in that for a few months as well.
I wish I would have known that. Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was quite good, and I got introduced to some other like-minded musicians that I'd never met before.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
that's another good way to have something to look forward to, something to focus on, something to work on, to keep the sort of the creative juices flowing.
right. Yeah, it was a hard time for me because I didn't know how to connect with a lot of people, but I started watching different programs that people were putting out there, their shows or whatever. And I missed this one. I wish I would have known about it. But, I didn't know about Snowtown back then, and I didn't know you. That was recent. We were
Well,
in a
it's
song
nice to
circle
be able
together,
to
by the way, at a
it's
birthday
nice
party.
to be able to get out and hit some open mics again, just because
Yes.
it,
Uh,
for me, open mics are not only about the music, but it's become my social circle. You
yes,
retire,
that's, yeah,
and you used to interact with people every day, and some of them were friends, but it was sort of in a business context.
right.
So you no longer have that. You end up with a handful of friends from work that you make an effort to stay in touch with, but
Right.
who you get to see all the time. And to me, it's kind of like a bowling league. You get out certain days a week, and there's certain people there all the time. So
Right.
you get to hang out with your friends and do the thing that you love, and have maybe a couple of beers, and it just makes it fun. It gives you something to look forward to.
Absolutely. So go out there and the sad part of this is I don't know if you know Lori Hardman, but she's a singer that sometimes goes into Oxford. She started out there, and I think I don't know a whole lot about the Oxford show that she was putting on, but she just asked me. She had a producer that was asking about all these open mics and jams in the area. I just got it today. It was back on March 6th, I believe. She sent me the message. I never saw it because I turned off all my notifications. I was getting to the point. And that would have been great to let her know about all these things. And I've tried to get a hold of her so I can do that. But yeah, jams and open mics are that is what keeps musicians who are not out there playing every day able to continue to develop their skills. And like you said, I had a terrible time after COVID with my voice because I hadn't used it enough. So yeah, you can lose those skills very easily if you don't go out there and do something.
Yeah, and then if you're a musician, you just can't not
That's,
play. It
that's
it
right.
just makes you crazy if you can't play.
Exactly.
You can play for yourself and your family, but I think you'd agree it's a lot more fun to play for a room full of people.
Right. It is. Even one person, I don't know, I don't care how big it is.
Or
I
just
enjoy it, even with one.
or just like you mentioned, friends will have parties in the summer where
Yeah.
you're out
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
have a song circle, and I love that sort of thing too, and look forward to nicer weather when we can do
Yeah.
that.
Let's do it again. Yeah. Oh, that was fun. The time that you and I were at the birthday party and uh, at Mark's house, that was great.
And Mark and
It's
Mark
Goldman, right? Goldman is his last name.
Goldberg,
What?
Mark Goldberg,
Goldberg.
Mark
Yeah. That's it.
Goldberg. Yeah, he's quite a good musician in his own
Yeah.
right.
Yes, he is. And he's a go-getter too. I enjoy him.
His wife Anne Marie is a sweetheart too.
Absolutely. And she's the one who's furnishing all that luscious food. So yes, God bless these women and guys that do this. So moving on from there, I believe you were going to play some music for us. So I'd like to hear what you have to deliver. And if you'd also tell us who the artist is, that would be great too. And I will bow out. Somebody was asking me, what's radio? I'm not even going to answer that, but I can tell you what a broadcast is. You're listening to it. And it's not just here. This is not just state of Washington or this town. This is everywhere in the world when people tune in. All right. Go for it.
So I mentioned Willis Allen Ramsey, and this is probably the song that caught my ear first on that album that I got of his, and it's called Painted Lady. Well, I'm following the stars through the honky tonks and bars, drifting where the country music that bad. Dorothy, by myself, taking that by the Ellen Club, pretty painted lady by my side. I'm talking about a painted lady by my side. Oh, tell that woman how it used to be, had a western wild and and the western word, you got a boy looking by eyes. And then one day when the first summer came, the boys had to play for the game. Wishing to be a cowboy all the while. I was wishing to be a cowboy all the while. Told me like the other lady. This particular day, nice and late, I got a hard and a well, painted lady with your painted face, and look at that in the face, and the way you love your legs, and you love it eyes. Well, like see the pain, I feel the pain on the painted eyes, behind the fear of love that owns the girl in the sky. I'm talking about a lovely, lonesome girl in the sky. Hold me like the upper rain. It's the day when you're best to me. I got working and the man.
Bravo. Well, I hate to say it, but there was on my end, I don't know about anybody else's internet, but there was some delay and you were cutting out. So I apologize for that because that's a great song. How can they go on YouTube and put in the Painted Lady or Painted Lady and find that song?
Possibly. I've never tried doing it because I have the CD, but he's probably out there somewhere. Willis Allen Ramsey.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry that one didn't go through as well as it should. No, a lot of times what I see here, I usually watch with Kurt at night after the broadcast, and it comes through on the TV like there's no stop or pause or anything. But here on
Well,
this
that happened this time.
yeah. So let's hope because I love the song. It was cute. You get another one in there. I can't really determine how good or bad it's going to be as far as the internet, but let's hope for the best.
And if it doesn't work, then we'll move on.
Okay, you go for it.
This is a song from the Jayhawks. make it like a train wreck. Where you wake up, the burden that you carry is more than one soul's ever had. Don't look so sad, Marina. There's another part to play. Don't look so sad, Marina. Save it for a rainy day. Save it for a rainy day. Save it for a rainy day. You never make your mind up. Like driving with your eyes shut. Rough around the edges for someone come and take you home. Waiting for the brakes. What will you set your mind to? We stood outside the Chinese restaurant in the rain. Don't look so sad, Marina. There's another part to play. Don't look so sad, Marina. Save it for a rainy day. Save it for a rainy day. Save it for a rainy day. Don't look so sad, there's another fight to play. Don't look so sad, save it for a rainy day. 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 Save it for a rainy day.
Oh, bravo. I love that. It's cute. I I think that is really cute. Now, how would you what bucket would you put these in? What genre would you say that the two songs that you played are in, or the songs that you mostly play? Would it be
Well,
with?
I would have to say that my repertoire is all over the place. It's not anything in particular. There's no rap in there, but it's a lot of it is age appropriate for someone who grew up in the 60s and 70s. So there's a
Right.
lot of favorites there. I mentioned the Beatles. There's a lot of
Yes.
Beatles in there, but I try to throw in something a little more current, like for instance the Jayhawks. I just became aware of them in the probably late 90s, early 2000s. And a friend talked me into going to a concert,
Hmm.
and I just thought to myself, wait a minute, I've heard these guys before, but just didn't appreciate who they were or what the music sounded like. So I picked that up, and every once in a while I just get this urge to play something that's way out of character for me. So there's going to be some eclectic stuff in there too.
Oh, cool. So I don't know what I'd categorize that as, but I like both tunes. They were lively, and I wish I could have heard the words a little better on the first one, but I don't know if it's my internet or what. But anyway, it didn't come as clear as I'd like it to have been on my side. So hopefully it did come through. All right. So there's some questions that I would like to ask you about how you view your long career as far as when you started. And obviously, this was not something that you made the decision to do for a career only. You did go to work. You did have 32 years selling insurance and having a family and all the demands of the family. But of all the times that you've had from then until now, what would you say were the aha moments that kept you, and I think I already know some of the answer here, that kept you doing this and practicing your craft?
Well, I'll take you to a couple of different points along the way that were just sort of high points for me. I mentioned the Mescalito brothers. We got to play an outdoor concert. It was called Spring Fever, and it was kind of pushing the envelope a little bit for Eastern Idaho. It was out in a farmer's field
Oh,
And it was
are they fun?
it was in the middle of April, and one of the big brewing companies provided beer, and we were the warm up group for sort of a regional touring band. They were called Salt Creek, and it was a really hot country rock band at the time in that part of the country. So we were invited to do this, and as you might foresee, we had a freak snowstorm. So we show up,
Oh,
and this thing also, I should mention that it was co-sponsored by this motorcycle group, the Empties. Think of the Hells Angels, only sort of their local little thing and not quite violent. But anyway, it was
wait, Violet.
sponsored by them and promoted by them. So we show up, and Salt Creek had, they brought all their gear, but they weren't sure that they wanted to have us play their gear because we were in this mucky field, with all this mud and stuff, and they were not happy at all that people were going to be tracking mud up and onto the
Yeah,
stage. And
yeah.
so whoever was in charge at the Empties said, "Oh, okay, we will promise you that not one speck of mud will get on stage." So then they took that to be some assurance. So when we went to go on stage before them, I'm climbing the stairs onto the stage, and this big ugly biker dude stops me right before I get to the stage. He says, "Hold on." And here he is. He's polishing every cubic centimeter of my shoes with his hands. And
Oh,
I'm thinking, boy, I must be dreaming. I've never thought that a
that's a good one.
motorcycle guy would be cleaning my shoes. So, and once we got up there, we just had a heck of a good time. And it maybe wasn't kind of turned out that they had hoped for, but there was probably a good 40, 50 people out there having a good time, and we did too. And then, fast forward, and I didn't mention this, but I think it's a big part of my musical enjoyment since I retired. You probably have met Jeff Crookall, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know. That name
he's
sounds
been
familiar.
around for quite a bit, and he goes out to open mics and he has his own band and that sort of thing.
But
But
what's the band's name? Which
oh,
is
his current band is Her, etc., and it's him and his wife and various other people. But what I wanted to bring up is Jeff and I played together in a band called the Reclamation Project, and I will tell you that the Reclamation Project and the Mescalito Brothers were both the high points of my musical career. And I would have to also say that the Reclamation Project of the two is a lot more fun because the people are just, Patrick Thayer, dear friend of mine, just a prolific songwriter, a great lead guitarist. In fact, we're going to go and see him next month. He moved to Missouri, Clarksville, Missouri, and so we miss him. So I'm gonna go and play with him there. But he was there, and Rod Ashton on bass. We just had a great deal of fun. We played at the Folklight Festival. We played at CCR. We played at the old Stewart's in Snohomish.
yeah, yes.
Some private parties and played at the Thumbnail Theater once. It was just great fun, and it was just a band with great chemistry. So that those two were sort of the highlights. And I do super enjoy playing with my band now, Deano's Motel. It just has a great vibe, and again, just good chemistry. Everybody works well together. The sound comes together, and I think we pull it off pretty well.
Great. It's good to hear that. Absolutely. So, along with that, the flip side of that is what did you ever have any moments that were just the flip side of good and to where it was, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?
Uh, I can't think of anything specific there. I don't think I've really been in any bands that just sucked. I mean, I'm happy to say that, so let's just say there have been some ups and downs, but none that have really affected me over time. It's more like a continuum of something that's good to something that's really great. So I guess I'm lucky in that way.
Yes. I've heard a few stories of people that come on and I ask them that question they go through all this touring and whatever, and end up with a very small crowd. And after all the things that they had gone through to get there, and wasn't what they were expected, but they still played and still enjoyed it. But it's good when you have positive experiences.
Oh yeah,
Positivity leads to more positivity.
yeah. You just can't beat having a packed house when you're playing. And Deano's Motel is fortunate to do that on a regular basis, which
Oh,
just makes
nice.
it fun.
Yeah, when you go to Highway 2, I know you played out there in Monroe. Was that a single act or did you have a band? Three-piece or
You mean Route 2 Tap Room?
Route 2, that's sorry, Route 2.
I do that as a solo act,
Okay.
partially because it's a very limited amount of space in
Yes,
some, there's just
yes.
barely enough room for one person. I've seen friends of mine play a duo act in there, but I wouldn't try to squeeze any more than that in there. So,
Where did they have it? Did they have it in the bar part or where the karaoke is or during the
well,
winter?
I've never been there for karaoke, so I don't know if I can
Well,
answer that question. Kind of kind of the front corner of the place across
okay.
from the bar.
Yeah.
One of those places where they move a couple tables and there
Yeah.
you are.
Okay.
No formal stage. They
Right.
have a bit of a PA system, but I've never
Yeah.
bothered to use it because people have told me it's just not worth it. So I bring my own gear. They do have a nice outdoor venue for some.
Yes. Yes, I've been to that.
Yeah, and it's nice and spacious. So
Yeah.
if I get a chance, I could possibly bring the band out there.
Right. That would be fun. Yeah, they got fire pits out there so you don't get cold. It's a nice environment. The whole
Yeah.
place is nice. Just a good
And I
place.
and I do enjoy playing the occasional solo act just because my repertoire just myself is like three times the number of songs that we have for the band, so it
Uh,
lets me kind
right.
of stretch my muscles a little bit
Yeah,
and help the
exactly.
old brain recall all of those songs. There's over 120 songs that I bring, and I don't come with the specific set list for that evening. I just bring the whole set of songs, and then as I play, I kind of try to take note of what people are responding to,
Responding
what they're
to.
not, and
Yes.
that guides me to similar songs so that I can try to keep everybody as entertained as I can.
What kind of feedback are you getting from your fans?
Uh, I think pretty positive. It seems like every time we go out, we have a few more, and there are some friends of ours that and fans that come to every show. So everything's good. I've never really received anything in the way of the criticism or disappointment or anything like that. It's just we try to help people have fun, and I think they respond to that.
Absolutely. And having a repertoire of songs that they can get into where they enjoy, it helps a lot. I have a little problem with that because I was never the lone singer in my band. So I had 4 or 5 people that would sing. So I I'm struggling. But anyway, we have about 10 minutes and I'd kind of like to know what you have coming up. Do you have anything that you're writing that you'd like to get produced, or are you working on get produced? Do you have any gigs coming up that you could tell us about, or this is about what you are going to be doing in the future?
All right. Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because we do have a few things coming up here. In fact, this Saturday, Deano's Motel will be appearing at the Grape and Grain in
Oh,
Everett. It's on
yes, that's right.
Evergreen, right next to the Popeyes there. It's the first time for us there, but I've gone to a few of their open mics. I've met the management, really good people. It's a really nice, relaxed place to sit back and enjoy some wine or beer. They have a little deli in there in case you're hungry. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that. And then we have another Deano's Motel uh, show at Port Gardner Bay Winery on the 31st of this month. And we
Okay,
played at
so
Port Gardner Bay several times and always done very well. Chris Covington treats us just like rock stars.
Yeah,
It's
nice.
humbling. He's so sweet to us and wants to make us happy. So we're happy to be back there, and we're sort of on a regular basis with them. When we'll finish the show, and then Linda, that books all the music there, will get in touch with me and say, let's set up the next one. And that feels so good when people
Yes.
reach out to you. I mean, it doesn't happen often, does it? But when
So,
someone reaches out to you and say, when can you play next? That really makes you feel like maybe you
yes.
are making a difference. Maybe people are noticing, and maybe people are really enjoying what you do. Just, if it was just playing for myself in my studio, it wouldn't be half as much fun and enjoyment as I have going out and appearing in
Right.
public.
Do you have a do you have any plan for the future, like a 5-year plan, for example, about where you want to be between now and then, or what goals are you working towards? Or are we just enjoying in the moment? How are you
I would
visioning?
say I would say the latter of the two. I am just pinching myself that we have fans that like us and that we have opportunities to play. And I don't really have any aspirations to go on the road or anything like that. I sort of enjoy my nice little life here at home and getting out as much as I want to, but not too much. And I certainly don't want to turn it into something that it's more stress than
Yeah,
it needs to be. So I'm just happy with things as they are. I just really the only thing I'm trying to do is maybe find different venues to sort of expand the various opportunities.
mhm,
That's that's one of the reasons I go to the various open mics, is maybe to get a little
right.
exposure, to introduce myself and perhaps the band to the style of music and how it sounds, and maybe get an opportunity to play at yet another venue that we haven't had the opportunity to play at. I would
Absolutely.
really love to maybe play as like an outdoor concert somewhere. We got to play at the Everett farmers market last summer, and that was a lot of fun. But just like maybe Klahia days or something like that. I'd love to be one of those bands that gets to play part of that show. But that's really the only thing I aspire to. The rest of it is just let's do the same and more.
Hey, gotcha. I understand that. Yeah, it can get stressful real fast. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's what I don't want. I had a job that was very stressful, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm done with that. I'm just here to have fun.
just sit back and let it happen.
Yeah, life can be too short. You just have
Yes,
to savor every moment and do the stuff you love.
right. I'm with you there, Dino. So, well, you might have that opportunity. One thing in life is that the unexpected happens a lot. you,
Yes, it
you know,
does.
now I've heard story after story from bands where they never expected, and then this happens, and it was great. So you may get that chance to do that in the future. I hope. I'll keep my fingers crossed.
I would love it. Maybe some of the viewers today will know someone who could hook us up to one of those outdoor things this
Yes.
summer.
If anybody knows of anything like that, or any information whatsoever to help Dino out as far as gig and reaching his goal, this is a good place to start. You can contact him. How did they get a hold of you, Dino? Do you have an email address handy, or how do they
Well,
text or
my email address, and I'll say it slowly because it's sort of long. It's D, the letter D, RA, P is in Paul, P, two P's in a row, LEYE at AOL.com. Yeah,
okay?
I'm that old. And
Well,
then
don't
also,
put an extra R in there. Don't put an extra R at the end,
as I also mentioned, we
which I
have
did.
a Facebook page under Deano's Motel, and you can find us there and send us a message that way as well. We'll take either kind of inquiry.
Perfect. Yeah, I did put the Dino's Motel with your songs and so forth that you'd sent me. I did get all
Mhm.
that out there, so it
Good.
is out there. Just to follow up with your gigs, and are they already on that Dino's Motel? Is it already on
Well,
that
what
site?
I do is maybe 2 to 3 weeks prior to each of the shows, I'll put an event together.
Okay.
So if
Good.
you go to Deano's Motel on Facebook and you start following it, then you'll get notice of every one of the upcoming gigs for both the band and also for me as a solo artist.
Cool. Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
you asked earlier about where the name came from.
Yes. Yeah,
You want to hear that
that is
story?
a
We have
different
not.
name.
Yeah. So I was playing at an open mic at CCR back when we used to host that. And a couple of friends, Jimmy Kohler and another fellow, kind of cornered me afterwards and said, you should have a band around you. And I was thinking, well, okay, maybe I should try that. So I had played with Kevin Engebretson. Boy, that's a hard one to say. Still, uh, several times at open mics. He's our steel guitar player. I reached out to him first because he's really super good, and I got him on board. And I found myself a bass player, Jimmy Kohler at first, and now Steve Tyndall, and they all agreed to be part of this band, and we started practicing. But I couldn't come up with a name. And so I thought and I thought and I thought, and nothing really rang the bell for me. And our friend Suzanne uh, Levy Garrett, who's a denizen of a lot of open mics, was down in Southern California taking care of an ill sister that had a stroke down there. I guess she had some time on her hands, and she's driving around. She's in Culver City and sees this sign. It says Deano's Motel. And
Cool.
she snaps a picture of that sign, and she sends it to me, and I said, that's it. The universe has spoken. We have now been named Deano's Motel, and the rest, as they say, is history.
History. Oh, that's a good story, Dino. I like that. So that's how you got your name. Because I was wondering, what's a motel got to do with music? But now it makes
Yeah,
sense.
not
And
much unless you're a touring musician, I suppose.
well, we've got about 6 minutes to close this up. And I guess what I'm going to ask is an open question. Uh, Is there any story out there that we haven't covered that you'd like to share with us as far as, I mean, anything that in your musical career that you'd like to share that we haven't covered?
Well, one story does pop to mind. After I was with those old guys playing Western swing, the name of the band was called the Lost Chords. I sort of traded up and I became part of a rock trio. It was called Free Dirt. And that too, I mean, at least the guy who started the band told me, well, he was looking for a name for a band, and he's driving along in the country, and there's a big pile of dirt with a sign on it said Free Dirt. And he said, well,
Oh my God.
that's going to be the name of the band, which, I don't know, it was okay. And so, we played it at bars in the area, and, I was too young to be in bars, but I had facial hair so I could pull it off. And then the guy that was the lead guitarist, he got this gig for us in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Oh, beautiful place.
Dead of winter, so we packed up his pickup truck with all of our gear when we drive up there, and we play this gig at the Wirt Hotel, and we had a motel booked for us to stay in, after we were done. And we packed up all of our gear, threw it in the back of the truck, started the truck, tried to go, and the parking brake was frozen. So I don't know how. And the guy's name is Ross Miller. I still stay in touch with us. He's in Boise, Idaho, and still playing music.
Yeah.
But he figured out that he could drive backwards, and he could get the thing to drive backwards. So here we are, like 1:30 in the morning, driving backwards down the main street of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and naturally, cop pulls us over. What are you guys doing? And Rob had to explain, well, it's frozen. I can't go forward. So we're just trying to get back to the hotel or the motel. And so, he escorted us back so we wouldn't cause any problems. But I thought we were going to jail that night.
Oh, no. Did he think you were drunk or on drugs or anything?
Well, he didn't say one way or the other. And, we could have been guilty of having a few drinks. You know how it is when you play a bar, they usually give you an open tab. So I probably had a couple of wild turkeys that night.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, we came out unscathed other than being frozen. It
Yeah.
must have been below zero that
Yeah.
night. It
It's
gets
cold
cold
there.
that time. Yeah, exactly.
So one last question before we go. We barely have time to put it in there, but I do want to get it. Do you have any advice to our listeners who are starting out or been out there for a while but are not yet gigging, or maybe they are and writing songs, etc., about anything that might give them an inspiration or a bit of instruction?
Well, I don't know if I can give advice on writing songs because I've only written a few of them myself, and it's been a struggle. There are people I know that it just flows right out
Yeah,
of them.
I
Like,
know.
like
Yeah.
me, I have to work at it a little bit. Really, if I was to give anybody advice about just having fun with their music, is just do it a lot. Try to practice as much as you can. Try to get out. Try to meet people. Try to go to open mics. I think that's the best way to get comfortable with what you do, really polish up your craft, and maybe get in the door with some places that will have you as a soloist or as a band that you've put together or something like that. Just stay at it and love it. Don't do it unless you love it. I mean, that's
Amen. Amen.
hopefully
I don't know.
that's
There are times when I don't love it, but for the most part, I do.
yeah, there's never a time that it seems like an obligation. That's when I'm going to stay home.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I do enjoy having you. I have enjoyed having you today, Dino. And I know your name is Dean, but I know you best by Dino. So I hope you
Yeah, yeah. All my friends call me Deano, so please do.
all right. And I'm really glad that we were able to get to so many topics so fast. I mean, I'm sure we could have done this for 2 hours and still have had things to say. So thank you
It
so
has
much.
been fun, and I do thank you for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. So if you want to listen to a good band, just remember the motel, Dino's Motel. All right, guys. My Dino, have a good rest of your day.
You too. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye. That's it for our program. I have Doug Cox, D-U-G Cox, C-O-X, coming next week at 2 o'clock. He is a new artist, singer-songwriter. And after the following Monday, that's what is today, 13th, so that's about the 20th. And on the 27th, now that Sam's Bar opened, and I can't remember what it was called prior to that, but Sandra Rita Don Lopez, a bass player and a local celebrity, help open up the Sam's Bar. And you're going to have to go there. The whole place has been redone and it's a great place. It's open, and she will be telling us about her experience with that on the 27th. So everybody have a good rest of your week. Thank you for tuning in. Let's see if I can end this thing smoothly. All right, guys. Bye.